Hey, what's up, guys? This is Big Joe Walker, and I'm so excited that today I'm interviewing on the Boston Chris show. And man, Chris stumped me on a lot of the questions. So y'all have to stick around, watch, share again, and share again.
It's time to jive. It's time to mingle. It's time to see what everyone's drinking. It's time to jive. It's time to mingle. It's time to see what everyone's drinking. Until we all lose connection.
Hey guys, Boston Chris here with episode number 45 of the Boston Chris podcast. And today we are sitting down and chatting with my buddy Big Joe Walker from Oak Cliff, Texas. I've been after Big Joe for an interview for dang near 10 years, and it finally happened. I'm so excited to finally get to talk to Joe. He's such a dynamic artist and so excited to pick his brain. We talked to Joe about a lot of different things, from his early musical memories and influences, how he really got started on the emotional side of music, and how that had such an impression on him as a youth, the lessons he learned from his mom and dad, dealing with the expectations of music, and specifically country music. We talked about his single cowboy stuff a little bit. We talked about his songwriting and how being a multi-instrumentalist kind of shapes who he is as a songwriter, his unique brand of Texas country, the strategy or lack thereof between doing up-tempo songs versus more vulnerable and ballady type of songs. How he specifically maintains the personality and humor needed to be a successful touring artist and on-stage performer. It's Big Joe Walker on the Boston Chris Show. Y'all check it out. Hey guys, Boston Chris with the Boston Chris podcast, and we finally, and I say finally, after almost 10 years of trying to get Big Joe Walker on my show, and look and behold, it is Big Joe Walker on the show, finally. Thank you, my dude.
Man, 10 years. That's incredible.
Almost, man. I think that I looked it up. The first time I reached out to you was 2016.
Oh, wow. That is almost that.
Yeah, damn near 10 years. And
That's crazy.
I think in 2018 or 2019 we had one scheduled for you to come to Longview. And for some reason I think you got a gig or something happened where we never did it. And so finally, so excited to have you here, man. How's everything been going for you?
Man, I tell you what, things have been going great, man. It's just kind of good to everything has changed in the music business so much.
Yeah.
And it's gotten so much tighter. But man, it's still great for people like you that are continuously pumping this music and showcasing artists and songwriters. Like, so God's been good on my end, man.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So I always have an icebreaker question, and it's part of my theme song. So I'm going to ask it. What are your favorite drinks right now? What have you been drinking?
As far as liquor?
Either one, man. Whatever you're after.
If the police are listening, I do not make moonshine.
Not anymore, right? No.
Not anymore.
Oh,
no, man. I'm really. It's funny. Anybody that knows me, I love Powerade, and so that's pretty much. You'll always see me with a Powerade. But as far as an adult beverage, it's definitely going to be a whiskey.
Do you switch it up with the Powerade too, or you stay with the blue? Because I know blue is the most popular.
You know what? I love them all. So it depends on how I'm feeling. One day I'm a lemon lime guy. The next day an orange. But blue is definitely probably ranked at the top there.
Yeah, and I'm just going to let people know out there who say Powerade and Gatorade are the same things. They are not.
They are not.
And I will give you an example why I know they're not. When I had throat surgery, I had like my uvula and my adenoids and my tonsils and all that crap taken out. They told me if I got thirsty to hydrate with Powerade. But they did not tell me to avoid Gatorade.
Yeah.
So we went to a store in Lindale to get on the way to the airport. I was picking up my daughter, and they didn't have Powerade. So I was like, well, Gatorade's the same thing. And so I went and took a swig of that Gatorade, and I haven't felt that much pain in my entire life. There's something
Oh,
in the
wow.
Gatorade that like completely tore me up in the throat. So
Oh, wow.
Powerade was not doing that. So interestingly enough, there is a difference. I don't know what it is, but there is.
Yeah, I think for me with Powerade, it's, obviously just as a kid and as an athlete, growing up, it was always Powerade or Gatorade,
Mm-hmm.
and then with it being a Coca-Cola product, and most schools were represented, with Coca-Cola.
Right.
So that it just kind of stuck with me.
And of course, Powerade is a Coca-Cola product. So yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So I understand. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you grew up in the Metroplex, right? Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah. I grew up in Oak Cliff,
Okay.
and I always say I had the best of both worlds because, my family was from the country, and see, back in the day, my parents. This is what's crazy. They had me very late. My parents were born in the 40s.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mine
and
too. Mine too.
yeah, so my family grew up on farms, and my parents grew up on farms, and the first thing, this is when ranching wasn't as sexy as it is now,
Right.
right? Like it's all everybody wants to be a rancher and a cowboy now, but back then it was truly hard work,
Mhm.
know.
Well,
And so
Hollywood has definitely sensationalized it a lot, haven't they?
yeah, like, and now, I ranch cattle, and it's not near any kind of hard work that, my parents damn had to go through with picking cotton, and, it was a hard childhood for them growing up. And so the first thing they wanted to do was move to the big city,
Right.
you know. And so but I was real blessed because I always, I kind of had the best of both worlds. I always say I'm hood and country. So I grew up in Oak Cliff, and then, spent the summers out, with my family out in the country.
And I love that too because, like, as a fan of yours, you can hear both sides of that in your sound too. And
Well, man, I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you for noticing
yeah,
that,
yeah.
brother.
Well, I'm
I
excited
appreciate
to
that.
chat about it. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of the music very soon, but I want to know where you came from, man. You talked about your parents. What are some lessons you still hold true that you got from your parents that still hold true today for you?
My dad was a trash truck driver, and I'll never forget this. I'd walk in, and well, he'd walk in. It'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be up, as a teenager, uh, just up watching TV or something. And my dad would sit on a chair and put on his boots, and I asked him a question. I said, "Dad, how do you wake up without an alarm to go, take care of trash at
Mm-hmm.
3 o'clock in the morning? How do you do it every day?" And my dad said something to me that always will stick with me. He said, "It's hard, but it's fair."
Hmm.
And that always sticks with me. Like, when you go through life, anytime you get to things that are difficult, um, it might be hard, but it's all fair. Some people get it worse than you, some people get it lighter than you, right? So it's all fair in the wash. And that has really helped me to be in a position of looking down the road of and not complaining, and excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
It's all good. My
I
phone
had
just
that
went
on
off
mute.
too, so I had to mute mine as well.
But yeah, but so not complaining, not feeling sorry for yourself, just kind of taking it all in stride, and I'm so grateful to have that. So that was one of the most important lessons I ever learned from my old man.
That's amazing. What about your mom? There's always something, right?
Yeah, my mom, what's funny, my mom was the firecracker. My dad was real cool, laid back, but
Mm-hmm.
mom, she was the firecracker. And the one thing that I learned from my mother, uh is my mom was the most resourceful person in the world. My mom could take some rice and some ingredients and literally make a meal that you thought was for a king,
Yeah.
and we didn't have any money, a lot of money, right? And I just remember that so much about my mom, to where she'd look in that pantry, and I remember looking in the pantry because it was empty, trying to find a snack after school or something. And she would always just come up and, so I really want to say, even though it wasn't music, I get that creative aspect from her,
Mhm.
because you had to be a creative, resourceful person to feed a big Joe Walker, because he ate a lot growing
Mhm.
up. Yeah,
Moms are that way, aren't they, man? Like they
yeah,
find a
yeah,
way to
absolutely,
make mountains out of molehills, so to speak.
absolutely,
Man, my wife is
absolutely.
that way. Like I'll look in the kitchen, I'll be like, "Baby, there ain't nothing in here but cereal and bagels," and she'll come out
Yeah,
like 45 minutes later and just have like this 8-course meal, and I'll be like,
yeah,
"All right,
yeah,
look,
yeah.
okay, making a liar out of me all the time."
Yeah, well, that means you got a good one, because I
Yeah,
promise you, like, I think that's really, and even the segue, that's really how I've kind of looked at my career. I've never had a hit record. I've never received big notoriety for music. But the thing about it is that I've just always been so resourceful, as far as making sure that, you know, that I play shows, that I get out there and get it any way that I can. And I've been blessed with a beautiful life to be able to do that.
yeah, and those are two lessons that are imperative, I think, in today's DIY environment when it comes to
Yeah,
music, man. So I love that those are your answers because I can guarantee you they're serving you well. Um,
I appreciate it.
yeah, when we're young, right, we're very impressionable. And
Yeah.
usually, the younger we are when we hear music, the more impressioned we're going to be by that. Do you remember, or what was your first memory that you can remember when it comes to music that really made an impression on you?
Uh, man, there's a lot. I think hearing my mom sing, like, as I got older, to understand, my mother used to blow the roof off the church. And when I was a kid, of course, as a kid, you didn't care about going to church. It was just something that you did. And
Mm-hmm.
believe me, my parents had me at church 8 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, but I remember one day when my mom got up to sing a solo, and I remember just, not drawing or flipping through the Bible just to, read, or, really just kind of stopping everything, and looking up and seeing my mother sing, and being touched by it. And I think that was the first time I was ever truly touched by music. And, the people in the church were hooping and hollering and catching the spirit. And I just remember my mother just stood there, just strong footed, and just belted out a song. And I just realized, like, I had a sense of pride for my mom. And more importantly, I truly felt something beautiful that I don't think, as a child, I think that was my first time experiencing emotional beauty.
So at a very young age, you're experiencing the emotional side of music, and that I mean,
Yeah, yeah, for
as an
sure.
impressionable youth, that's really gonna hold some meaning to you for a really long time.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's not just some man. I hate to say the word, but like soulless kind of music that's just that can kind of permeate our radios, right? Like
right, right.
it's just ticky tack. With you, that didn't happen. You were inundated with the emotional side of music really young.
Yeah, yeah, for sure,
Now, I
for
love
sure.
that, and I can see that in your sound now. There's a lot of emotion in your sound. And man, you mentioned a few minutes ago about being from the country, and then being from the city. You've done both sides of that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I have as well. I live in the country now. I grew up literally inner city Boston, so I know
Right,
I know what
right.
that is. I know what ghettos are. I know what drive-bys are. I lived that life when I was young. So,
Yeah,
and I also understand the way music can influence somebody depending on geography, right? So, like, if you're from out in the country, you're going to hear things that are different than what you're going to hear in the city. How do you feel that's kind of shaped who you are as an artist now?
you mean how having both of those influences have shaped
Yeah, just
me?
kind of the genres that
I
you hear in the
Yeah.
different
Well,
demographics. You know what I mean?
probably the most important part of it for me is I listen to music with an open spirit,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, um, there's not a tone of music that turns me off. Like, because I know a lot of people, like, if you play a country record and, you know, they're don't listen to country the first instance, they're, oh, what is that? I don't want to hear that. And vice versa for like a hip hop record.
Mhm.
And, so like music to me, the first thing that I 100% that I wish people would understand is genres do not own music.
Nope.
Genres borrow from
Yep.
music. So when people get to a point to where they're saying, hey, this isn't this record here, or this isn't country music, or this isn't proper hip hop, like, who says that?
Yep.
Who owns
I
that?
love
Because
that.
country music didn't create 12 notes,
Nope.
nor did hip hop, nor did rock. They all borrow from music.
It's weird,
And
right? Because like the expectation is supposed to be for people, not for an artist, but for people, the listener, the consumer, so to speak. The expectation is black and white, right?
right,
But yet
right,
art is subjective. Art is gray. It will always be gray. And
right.
you can't put black and white on art. It just doesn't
It,
work.
it's 100. You're
Yeah,
100% right,
and it's
Chris.
it's
Like,
always evolutionary too, right? So you go over the history of music, no matter what the genre is, and you're always going to hear different elements of different things in each piece of art. It all depends on the influences of the person who created it,
yeah,
right? And that's all it is.
100%.
And that's what makes art great is each person is influenced in a different way. So
Yeah.
there can't be black and white. The expectation is wrong, right?
Well, and if it was black and white, you'd be really tired of the music. All right.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like I tell people all the time, like, look, I think Chris Stapleton is one of the greatest to ever do it, period.
Yes.
But if you listen to Chris Stapleton, that's not a country singer, that's an R&B soul singer.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right?
Yep.
So you can't say that you don't like certain genres because it's been blending and it's great when it does. Now, is there music that I'll hear that I'm just like, it just doesn't do anything for me? Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Of course. Everyone has that right. Everyone has that ability to be able to kind of pick and choose what they like. But for me, when I'm making a record, the first thing, and this is and actually I had to do this for myself first, to start to say, hey man, you have to make records, because I used to try to play that game of, well, you know what, I'm gonna play country, I'm not gonna add any of the influences that might be considered hip hop or R&B, and then I got to a point to where it said, you know what, but if I'm only doing that, I'm only offering you half of what Big Joe Walker
Exactly
is.
right. Yep.
And when you go back into listening to my records once I'm dead and gone, I want you to know who I was in its entirety.
Yep.
And so that's the great thing that I've been blessed with, to be able to grow up and experience different types of lifestyles, is to be able to understand those stories and in those lifestyles, because truthfully all stories are the same. I tell people all the time, we all want the same things. We want to be able to take care of our families and be left the hell alone.
Yep.
That's what everybody wants. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. Like, that's what everybody wants.
Mm-hmm.
And in music, when you think about a song, I don't think about, like, if it's a love song, you're thinking about the act of love, not the persons that's sharing that love, because you want to leave room for people to put themselves and have their own interpretation of your music in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I've been really excited. We've been really busy in in the studio right now, and the band's going to be coming in here in a little bit, but we've been going back and forth just in making music, because we have such a new lease on what we're wanting to create, and it's been real special for us.
I love that, man. And do you feel like those expectations you talked about, like societal, racial, genre, all of those things, as a gigging artist, a touring artist, do those expectations hurt you when you maybe have to feel like you're only allowed to give them half of Big Joe Walker?
Well, I think that part of it is growth in artistry, right? Like
Right.
I think as an artist, there's some artists that just get it who they are. Like my buddy William Clark Green, that Sun Gun's been Will since Will started Will.
Yep.
Like he gets who he is as an artist, and that's where he pushes. My problem is because I love so much music, it's been very hard to dial in my artistry into a. That's why if you listen to my record, there's so many types of records on there, right? Just because there's a super country record, there's a soul record, there's
Disco. There's disco in there, man.
yeah, like there's even a Motown record
Yeah.
on it,
Yep.
you know. So it's like there's a for me because it's so broad and my musical, and this is not a braggadocious statement, but my musical talent really does cross a lot of genres.
Yes, it does.
Because that's how I trained in a lot of genres, right? Was it's so hard to say, hey, we're gonna dial this in, Joe. Let's focus this way. Let's try to put this theme on this record. And what I've done, what has really been great, and this has happened here in the last 2 years or so, of really being able to say, hey man, it's okay to make a different record. If that's what that record calls for, just make the record. Because the song is going to be a song. It's going to be a good song or it's not going to be a good song. And genres don't really matter when the record is good. Right? So there's a reason why kids know the Temptations' My Girl song, because it's a good record.
Yep.
Right? No matter if you're a kid that grew up in the country or the inner city, like, you know that song because that song is a good record. And I think that's where my focus have been now is, hey, play your records. And like this new records that I'm starting to push, they're really piano heavy because that was my first instrument. That's my first love. And so like a lot of these records are going to be just piano records. And some people want to hear rock and guitar, and yeah, there might be some in it, but for the most part, it's piano influenced records that we're going to be pushing out, you know? So it's a, and I probably went on a tangent. I'm sorry, but
no, that's what this show's for, man. It's perfect. Yeah.
But yeah, man. So like, I just feel that with music, it's so important to be able to explore and to not think about, because, you know, here's the deal. We're still professionals. We're still trying to make a living at this. Right. And so I live by the concept, right? If I'm selling snow cones, I like grape ones, but the whole world wants cherry. Well, you want to sell cherry snow cones, right? Or you're just going to eat a lot of grape snow cones.
Or maybe a cherry snow cone with just a little touch of grape in it.
Right, exactly. So the idea is, look, you're not going to change people's taste, but people can recognize, oh man, that's a great record for what that record is. I don't listen to a lot of heavy hardcore rock, but I can tell you it's a great record. No more than if I listen to Spanish music, which I absolutely love, and I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I hear it. I'm like, man, that's a great record. And I'm asking my friends, Spanish freaking friends, what are they saying? Because I love this song. You know?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of Scandinavian music, like Iceland and Sweden and stuff like that. I have no clue what they're saying, but I love it, man. Love it so
what do
much.
they call it? Sky rock?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Some of that is from that, but like, man, there's an artist named Aurora. She's from somewhere up there, and I love her, man. She does both English and Swedish or Icelandic, wherever she's from. She's amazing, but
she's not the one that plays the violin, is it?
No, but I think I know who you're talking about, though.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, let's back up just a little bit, because I love to hear when your first impression into music, and then you go from that, because obviously, when you're first being influenced by it, and you know, you're a listener, you're a consumer, so to speak, but at some point in time, you become musical yourself, right? So you pick up an instrument or you play piano. When did that happen for you?
Well, I was at church a lot, and my my mom didn't let me sit in the back with all the cool kids. Like she made me sit up front to where she could be in the choir stand
Keep an eye on you.
and keep, do that mom beatboxing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sit your butt down,
Yep.
all that. And so I just started my only entertainment was watching the musicians in church. And so I just sit there and I just watch the musicians. And that's really how we had an old upright piano in the like our family and life center in the church, basically where we have food and all that kind of stuff. And so I just go there and I just be banging out the keys. What's interesting, my drummer, who's been my best friend since third grade, uh, like he and I both went to the same church, and so we would just play music, like, and that was a cool thing. So, we might go outside, play football or whatever, and then come inside and just play music, like just trying to learn songs.
Hmm.
And so that was first. That was when you started. I want to say third, fourth grade, when you
Wow.
really said, like, man, I really have this obsession with music. And my family knew it. So I remember one year for Christmas, the theme for me was, my brothers and sisters were all adults by the time I was 6. But, one year I got a keyboard and drum set. And so it was just always like, my family was so beautiful by investing in me in that, because they just knew I just had a love for it.
And that could definitely not be the case when you're kind of maybe a surprise, right? Like all your brothers and sisters are adults, and like you come
Yeah,
along
oh man.
as a late bloom or whatever, and usually they can be done with parenting by that point, right? It's
Yeah,
nice
no,
that they
like,
were still investing in you, man.
oh man, it was awesome, man. I'm so blessed. Like, both of my parents are gone now, but man, me and my brothers and sisters were so close. It's ridiculous, and and that's probably the greatest gift I think my parents ever gave me, was just, they just raised some really good human beings, and really decent, loving people, and like I said, we're all extremely close to this day.
I love that, man. Yeah. My wife, her parents were very, very old as she came along.
Hmm.
Uh, I think she's 42 now. Her dad passed away at 86, and
Mm.
he was in his 50s
Yeah,
when they
yeah,
had her. So he was born in the 30s, so like even a generation before our parents, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, so I was always interested in that, like how that worked for them. You know what I mean? Her being so
Hmm.
young, but. Man, I know sports was really important to you too, right? So
Yeah.
was there a competition going on between music and sports for you at any point?
No, like in fact, it all ran together. Like it was like even all my partners grew up with, like we all loved sports, but we all played music. We had like a little singing group, in high school. Used to play at all the girls' sweet 16s,
Mm-hmm.
But our deal was we'd go play basketball, and then, we go play basketball and hoop all day, or play football, and then and this was in high school, we go get something to eat, and then, we sit outside the car singing harmonies,
Mm.
right? So it always kind of, it was really truly married. Like I don't think I picked one over the other, in a sense of, I loved them both, and but I loved, again, it goes back to, it wasn't just about the music, just like it's never just about the sports, right? Like the one thing that you miss the most, if you ask anybody that played organized ball, particularly maybe like on the collegiate level or anything of that nature, or even high school, is that they'll tell you they miss the camaraderie, they
Mm-hmm.
miss the locker room.
Yep.
Like, it's, I couldn't tell you about games, but I could tell you when somebody did something at practice and the coach was yelling, and it was the funniest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's the same thing with music, right? Like, yeah, I love playing shows. The shows are great, but some of the greatest times are when we're here in the studio and someone makes a mistake, but it sounds good, and we just discovered a jewel,
Yep.
and we go crazy. Oh, that's killer! Like
Those happy
that's the most.
mistakes, man.
Yeah, that's the most special part about it for us, for
I
sure.
love that. So you are a multi-instrumentalist, and so I know you play, just from my research, piano and guitar. There may be more, I don't know, but you can tell us. I would love to know what your songwriting process is like being a multi-instrumentalist, because most people in the genre, especially in Texas, the base of their art comes from an acoustic guitar. There are a lot of pianists as well that their bass comes from that too. I imagine you probably just let the song pick, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I had to stop. I had to force myself to get off of the guitar to start writing more on piano. Because I always had a guitar in my hand because I was a better piano player. I'm a better piano player than I am a guitarist. So the musician in me always wants to get better at guitar. So I'm always picking the guitar, just trying to train. And in turn, it started creating a lot of opportunities for me to write, on the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's honestly, but the problem is I write total different songs from the guitar than what I do on the piano. And I don't know. I really couldn't tell you why. Um, but it's more so on guitar, there are always happy little mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the piano, there's a more of a sense of knowing where I'm going. And so um, I find that writing songs on the guitar um, challenges me more, and it brings out, I mean, even the way I sing on certain things, even the way it's wrote, the melody is wrote, it's just way different than what it is on the piano. And so I've gotten back to writing on the piano, and to be honest, I'm just really loving where it's going.
I love
Like
that.
yeah.
Do you feel like that gives you an advantage over other artists, perhaps?
Um
And I mean from the base of, like, for example, the Texas country music scene is very. There's a lot of infrastructure there, right? There's a lot of
mhm,
venues. There's a lot of charts, like, where you can chart your songs and things like that.
mhm.
I feel like when I'm listening to your music, it's so wide based because of the different instrumentation in there from you.
I
And I don't hear that from a lot of other artists in the scene.
Well, and that's part of, to be very honest and frank, I think that's part of, I've heard a lot in my career, well, you should do this or you should do that because I have the ability to do this.
Mm,
Or they'll say, well, I really don't like the tone of it. Like, I remember we won the Battle of the Bands, the Shinerbach Battle of the Bands, and I remember a statement that was made to us that I won't name the judge, but it really pissed me off. He said, your sound is just too good. It's too clean. It's not Texas music.
mm,
And I remember that thought of a lot of times in Texas music, there's a sense of grit. And I think people mistake grit for bad musicianship.
mm-hmm.
All right. And so I wouldn't say it's an advantage. Um, I would say it's more of a, sometimes, because I'm a multi instrumentalist, sometimes I do things that kind of go over people's heads.
Mm.
And that's not saying I'm smarter than anybody by any means. I think that sometimes my music is
It's
misunderstood.
just different, man.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's different. There's going to be movements. There's going to be augmented chords. There's going to be what we call jazz notes in it, right? Like, and I think sometimes it's just not taken very well.
Well, first of all, I would challenge anybody to try to define the words Texas music, because I don't think there's a clear cut definition to those words.
100%.
In my opinion,
And Texas music is not a sound, right? It's a state of mind.
absolutely.
I've always said, with Texas music, when did this become, this is what red dirt sounds like, or Red Dirt Music was about, hey, we're playing our type of music because everyone wants us to be a certain way, but this is who we are.
Mhm.
And at some point in time in Texas music, I think that thought process had was starting to dwindle a little bit. It's not that same Texas music that I fell in love with years ago.
Yeah.
And
And just like all
so
music, it evolves, and
y-
you can't stop that. You just can't.
you can't stop that at
Yeah.
all.
Mhm.
And it shouldn't be like this. When Co Wetzel's a great buddy of mine. When Co dropped, he made a rock record, and it was Co's a rocker, like, and
Mhm.
but I still call him Texas music.
He is
He comes
Texas
from
music,
Texas music,
absolutely.
yeah.
Of
So like,
course.
but at some point in time, I think that with Texas music, the most beautiful thing about Texas music that I love is that anybody that wants to be a part of this scene can be a part of it.
Yep.
Meaning you don't have to come from a musical background. You don't have to. I mean, we know a lot of guys that really can't play the guitar very well that stand up there and sing their songs.
Mhm.
And that's great, right? Because it's about who they are at that moment.
I mean, you just go look
And
at the charts. You got 100 songs on there. And 100 artists, and not two of those artists are going to be exactly the same.
yeah,
So I
and
mean,
that's what I love
how do
about
you
that.
define Texas music if that's the case? Like, you just
Exactly.
can't.
It's
Go ahead.
no, I was just saying that's the biggest point to me. And going back to, does it give me an advantage? I think it gives me an advantage now. It used to be a hindrance to me because I had a hard time focusing my sound
Mhm.
and focusing where I want to go. And now, just through your artistry, you grow into the business. Like, I'm more confident than ever in the records that I'm making.
Well,
And,
it's like you said
you
earlier, man. It's impossible to create an identity when you're so polyamorous, right?
yeah,
That's what my
yeah, like
wife
you
calls
just
it. Yeah,
yeah,
polyamorous.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. I'm polyamorous. I'm start using that because and speaking of jam, I love jamming. Like, that's just kind of, a lot of times we'll get to rehearsals here in the band and we don't even rehearse. We just jam.
Yep.
And I don't feel like we cheated ourselves or we should have did a better rehearsal. Yeah, we probably could have been a little bit more focused. But the come away with the jam, like, is the instance of, oh man, we just became that much tight of a band.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So here's one, man. As a Texas music fan, I feel like there are artists. I'm not going to name any names, but I mean, we can both kind of guess who they are, and so can our audience. But there are bands and artists out there who are known for party songs and up tempo dance type songs. There are
Mhm.
artists out there that are known for kind of sweet and vulnerable ballads. And then there's the select few who are very adept at doing both of those things. I feel like you are one of those select few that's
Oh, well,
able
thank you.
to put out a party song or a drinking song or a dancing song, but also show the vulnerable side with a ballad. Is there a strategy behind releasing those types of, different songs?
Man, I tell you what, I don't know if there's a strategy, and if it is one, I haven't figured it out, right? But it for me, it's some of our best songs, and this goes back to polyamorous. Like, some of our biggest records were not me sitting down in front of the piano or in front of a guitar holding the guitar. A lot of, like, Rattle Your Bones came from a jam session. Like, it literally came from a jam session. And I remember the exact day that song was wrote. So a lot of it is what feels right, what feels natural. And the other part goes back to, I do have a lot to offer in my music as far as, I love harmonies. I love beautiful, big, lush chords. And so when it comes to a ballad, like, it's one of those things where it's like, I want to accentuate all of those elements of it,
Mm-hmm.
into a song. So as far as the strategy goes, and again, and I'll keep saying, it goes back to just artistry and growth in your artistry. I'm married to the song, and not. And I used to try to, like I said, I used to try to play that game. Hey, we need to put out this type of record. It's almost summertime. We got to put out a summer song.
Yeah. I hate
You
that,
know,
man. I hate that.
yeah, like it's just like now, and I get it. We've all done it, but it's now you just realize none of it matters. It's about if the song is good, the song is going to have legs. It's going to crawl where it needs to go. It's going to run to places. People are going to play it if the song is right.
Mhm.
And so for me, it's just the focus is completely 100% now of, hey, let's make sure the song is right.
Do you feel
And
do you feel the initial emotional attachment to music when you were just a youngster in church really serves you well now as an artist when you're
yeah,
trying to get
because
that message out there with your music?
yeah, because you're charged with, I think as musicians we forget there's a, you know, we owe we owe all the artists that have given us music that has helped us through times to commit to making records like that. Like sometimes I'll hear a record that I'll listen to a record that just floors me. And I think to myself, I don't even have the mental capability to make a record like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like because it's so emotional, it's so it or not emotional, emotive. It just has such a strong currency about it, right? And then you just pray, man, God, just help me. If I could touch somebody the way that song touched me, I'd be completely happy. And then every once in a while, you'll make a record and you forget about, because again, you're steadily trying to make records and write, and you have somebody come up to you and say, hey, your song, That's the Way You Make Me Feel, you know, like has really helped me through some of the darkest time of my life. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear that, it is probably the most beautiful thing that connects me back to that experience of seeing my mom sing or learning how to play my first song.
And that's
or,
success, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it really is. And I hate to sound like, oh, if one person loves my song, that's all I need. Yeah, like, but it really is true because there's been many of records that have gotten me through a lot of dark times in my life and tough situations in my life. And what an honor to be able to be, your music is the catalyst to help people get through some things.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, music's all about human connection anyway. So
100%.
first of all, like if you're touching somebody's life, most of the time they're not going to have the courage to come up to the artist and say that hey, you touched my life. So when somebody does have the courage to do that, then you have to know that there are some that are not telling you that it's also touching. So
yeah, for sure.
Because I imagine probably for everyone that comes up to you and actually says something, there's probably a dozen that don't. You know what I mean?
Man, I never even thought about the ones that don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. People tell me all the time. I stream video games live sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody once told me, "You never know who's watching. You never know who's listening." So, even if there's nobody in the room or there's nobody, like there's a 0 on your screen for how many viewers you have, you never know who could be watching. So, perform like the whole world is watching. So I love that. Never know who's listening. Remember that.
Yeah.
So you're also a very, very busy stage performer, obviously. You're making a career out of this, and being a touring musician is paramount to making a career at this, unfortunately, in the 21st century. It used to be you could just write a song or you could make an album and maybe go out on tour for a season and then just reap the benefits. But that's not how it is now. Now you have
it's 365 now, buddy.
Year round, yep. So let me ask you this, man. As somebody who's super busy on stage, how do you continuously create the personality and humor that you have uniquely to entertain folks over a long period of time without kind of losing focus of how important that is?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to love it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I always tell people to get on stage, that's the treat. That's the gift of music, that somebody actually thinks enough of us that we're worth to buy a ticket for, or to pay a guarantee for, to play. Um, as you know, in this business now, you have to wear so many hats, right? You got to be a videographer, you got to be an audio engineer, you got to be a marketing expert, right? Like, so you you got to be a mechanic, like, to get down the road. All
Yeah.
these things, it takes requires so much to get on stage. So when you actually get to do what you want to do, I didn't sign up to be a musician to be a social media guy or videographer. Like, it's just part of my job duties now,
Yeah.
right? It's not my favorite thing to do, but I
It's
did
a
sign up to be
necessary
able.
evil.
It's a necessary evil, but I did sign up to be a performer and to be able to share my songs on stage. And what a great honor and blessing that is to be able to do so. So when I'm there on stage, uh, like, it's one of those things where it's just, I realize, hey man, number one, there's a lot of other things I could be doing and not enjoying. And this is everything that I'm doing on this stage. Even if I wasn't getting paid, you do it for free
Hmm.
because you just love it so much. And I think that right there is the paramount answer for it, is just, you have to love it, because if you don't love it, it'll expose you really quick too.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely. And if you're faking it, people know too, man.
yeah,
You know.
one hundred
Yeah.
percent, one
So
hundred
like, and
percent.
that's what I mean, man. I see a lot of really busy performers that are clearly burnt out, right? Like you can tell, like they're just going through the
Mm-hmm.
motions, and they're still putting on a great show, but you can tell that it's just a job for those folks. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of live video from you, and I never get that from you ever. I never get that message from you, like you're just going through the motions. And I know how much you perform, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why that question made the outline. I just find it so cool that you're always so funny and so personable and
Well, thank you, man. I
down to earth.
appreciate
I
that.
love that, and I hope to get to see a live show soon ish.
Yeah, we got to make that happen, man.
Absolutely, for sure. But yeah, we're going to take a brief commercial break right here, and we're going to come right back from the commercial. We're going to have a lot of fun with Big Joe Walker. First time on the Boston Chris podcast. Y'all come back.
I'm putting it together right now, and I'd love to get it out that any student, I don't care how old you are or what, if your heart lies within this kind of domain of the sound, playing, any of that, I'm gonna start taking one day out of every couple of weeks and invite students in for a very small charge, and I will tell you whatever you want. Any question you got, I'll try to answer it.
Well, I will certainly put that out there, and I'll make this a little ad for you, and we can share
Because
it everywhere.
they'll have full access to the studio, everything. I can tell them everything about how all of this started from analog into the digital world, and you'll be able to have hands on, and I'll show you why analog sounds better than digital.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll definitely cut this out. I'll make a little ad out of it, and we can share it everywhere.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Because I'd love to do it. That's my legacy, is to leave with.
It's the pass it down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all right. So we are back, and so I know we've had some fun talking about the nuts and bolts of where you came from, how your art comes to be, and all that stuff. But I have a lot of segments here at the end that are really fun, and I think you'll enjoy these.
All right, let's do it.
First one. This is called Mount Rushmore. And so you have to name your Mount Rushmore of Texas artists. This would be the top 4. You only get 4, no honorable mentions.
Oh man, you know I love Texas music, man.
I do.
tough
That's
on
why
me.
I'm hitting you with it, man.
Let's number one. I got to go Pat Green.
Okay.
He's the reason why I fell in love with Texas music.
Love it.
Man, good. You're killing me with this one. All right, I'm gonna go from a different because I have to go with guys that I know, and I'm gonna have to go Pat Green number 1. Number 2, I got to go my buddy William Clark Green.
Okay.
I'm the godfather to his son, so he'd be
From
ticked off.
Flint, Texas, I would kill for an interview, just so everybody knows. I've never
we got
interviewed
we got to
WCP.
get Willie on here.
Yeah, please, man,
Yeah,
make
we
it
gotta
happen.
Get Willie on here. Yeah, so I have to go with Will. Man,
Halfway there, Joe.
man, you killing me. You're killing me with this one. Number three. Man, I got to go Randy Rogers Band.
Man,
Just because anytime now we always talk about like Texas music doesn't have a sound, but anytime I hear Randy Rogers Band, it's like, yeah, that's Texas music.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
if there was ever a sound that I have to say, okay, this is Texas music, right? I'd have to concede it.
Joe,
Randy
this is
Rogers.
where it gets hard now, man. You have the rest of the artists in the world for one spot.
Yes. Man. I'm gonna have to go. Man, so here's the. I feel like I should like name some older guys because they were founders, right?
Yep.
But people are gonna hate that I say this, but I'm gonna have to go. Well, not hate it, but because I didn't name older guys like a Willie or anything like that, I'm gonna have to say. I'm gonna have to go with Josh Abbott Band.
Damn, I like it. Yeah.
And the reason why is because Josh Abbott Band, I'm really close to a lot of the guys, and probably the most important thing about it, Josh Nam gave me a lot of opportunities that I'm truly grateful for. But even more so, they truly transcended Texas music to another atmosphere.
Yeah. They brought it to the whole country, too.
Yeah, like they really did. I mean, Pat did it, obviously, with Wave on Wave.
And Randy as well.
And Randy. But, man, Josh Nam, when they took it, at one point in time, I don't think there was anybody bigger than Josh Abbott Band, even as Pat was at his biggest and Randy was at their biggest.
I agree.
So I have to give it to them.
I love that. That's a great four, man. Pat Green, William Clark Green, Randy Rogers, and Josh Abbott. Love it.
Yeah.
That's a great foursome. Yeah. Well done. All right, so we're going to play What the Heck with Big Joe Walker. The way this works is you have to turn your filter off here, okay? So the very first thing that pops into your brain is what comes out your mouth, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to give you 5 rapid-fire questions.
Okay.
All right, here we go. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, this is What the Heck with Big Joe Walker. What happens if you get scared half to death twice?
You dead?
You think so?
I'm just going death times 2, half death times 2 equals 1 death.
You got to look at math, though, right? Because unless they happen at the same time,
if you get scared half to death twice,
it would have to happen right at the same time for you to die, I would think. Otherwise, the half to death the second time still leaves you with quarter of a life.
That's a lot of math there, Boston Chris.
Oh, man. All right, so number 2, you can listen to one artist for the rest of your life, but once you pick that one artist, no other artists exist. Who are you listening to?
Stevie Wonder.
I love it. That's the second time that name has been on there. I love that.
100%.
Yes, I like that. All right. Number 3, would you rather eat a handful of hair or lick 3 public telephones?
Handful of hair.
I'm there with you. I could drink something to get it down, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, number 4, have you ever used your phone's flashlight to try to find the phone that you lost?
No.
You didn't have to think about it. I've done that at least twice, sadly. All right, number 5, last one. Have you ever tripped on stage? And if you did, how did you play it off as cool?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Like, well, part of it, when I had a little bit of whiskey that night, and there's these steps.
I love how you said all the time, and then you said that night. Like it was always whiskey's fault every single time.
Yeah. Like I mean, that happens all the time. And so the funniest thing, we have a talkback mic, obviously, to talk to each other in the band,
Right.
And so there's always jokes being made, or if somebody messes up, there's always a little quick jab. But yeah, like I trip over because with piano chords, and I got big boots on, and so and most stages I play are pretty small stages, so it's inevitable. It happens.
So we're both big dudes. I'm 6'4",
Yeah.
350. So I'm there too. And
Exactly.
I don't think you can be coordinated at our size, right? We have to be clumsy.
No, you just hope you just kind of walk through the trip, right? Like you could trip, but as long as you don't stumble, because we're gonna look like a big redwood tree falling.
That's right.
if we
The
fall.
problem though is we're both clumsy, we're both big, but then when we're on the whiskey, that clumsiness, we don't give a shit at that point.
It
right?
goes, and it's a long, slow fall.
It is.
And there's nothing worse.
And
than
you
a long,
feel
slow
none of it
fall.
until the next day, I'm here to tell you.
Yeah, because when you're falling and it's slow, you're doing a lot of extra things, like trying to reach for stuff that's not there. Like, oh, yeah. So it's just even that much worse.
Yeah, or things that have no support that you're just hoping that somehow like
everyone's getting out of your way. No one's trying to help
Yep.
you because they don't want to injure themselves.
right.
So,
It's like when you fall into the crowd and the crowd just parts.
exactly. Exactly, man.
All right, man. I love that. Next segment is called One Artist, and I love this segment. We just started doing it a couple of weeks ago. So Big Joe Walker can name one artist he wishes the entire world knew about. Who is that one artist?
Ooh.
And it can't be yourself. You have to pick somebody else.
Man, I'm gonna go. Man, that's a tough one because I got a lot of friends in the business that hadn't had a lot of recognition, and I believe they just deserve it because they're such great artists and great songwriters. I think I'd have to go with a guy named Ross Cooper.
Okay.
He is a phenomenal songwriter, and he and I wrote a few records together. But he's an old Bronx buster, and man, when I tell you he writes, well, he's not old, but like the guy's just a nice guy, and man, man, I have to name a lot of artists because there's a lot of guys that
There is, unfortunately.
man.
There is.
But yeah, I think Ross Cooper, like just him as a songwriter, is probably one of, like he has it.
I started that segment for selfish reasons, man. I love when I find new music, it's like Christmas morning,
Oh, dude, check out Ross.
I'm
Cooper,
excited to do it, man. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got a couple more segments here. Joe, I appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks, brother.
All right, so this next one, you'll be my guinea pig for this one. We'll see if it works or not. This is called Wishlist.
All right, sounds good.
The segment is called Wishlist, and so basically what you, as the artist or as the person that has to answer this, the Wishlist segment is something that you would like to do, whether it's a venue you'd like to play at or an artist you'd like to open for or a songwriter you'd like to co-write with, just something that you would love to do.
My wish list would be to write with Walt Wilkins and then take that song in the circle at the Grand Opry.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you'd have to have him there with you to play on the song.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but I think Walt is such a beautiful human being, and he's been so incredible to me in my career, and not only to mention that I just think he's probably one of the best writers of the generation. Like that would mean so much to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be an awesome interview too. I've been trying. I'm a huge fan of the songwriter and the producer, the people behind the curtain,
Yeah.
And I've been really blessed to talk to some really, really cool, legendary songwriters this year, and it's just such a cool feeling to get into their minds and hear what they're thinking and how they go from blank paper to fully fledged song and how it's different for each of them, right? It's
right,
so cool,
right.
man. All right, last segment. This will probably be the hardest question for you to answer, because this is an introspective question. Who is Big Joe Walker?
I think Big Joe Walker is a person that truly believes in making music that's good for the soul. That's when you listen to a Big Joe Walker record, he's gonna be a friend that can be there for you. He's tough. He has grit. He has an intestinal fortitude to keep going, but more importantly, he has a heart for people. And I believe that a life well spent is spent in the service of other people. And so, and I want that to come across in my music. So if I could get all those attributes, just a little bit the dab of it in each one of my songs, then I feel like I've been pretty successful.
I love that. And speaking of records, I understand that you're working on one.
Yeah, we released cowboy stuff late last year, and
great song, by the way. I've
you.
played it on my shows.
Thank you very much, man. And so we're releasing. So we'll get ready to release every single month. We're going to try to release a new song, and then at the end of the year, that'll be the full record of it.
Nice.
So, but
remind me what the name of the record is, because I know it was like a play on words. I forget what it was.
Yeah, the record's called Country Versal.
Yes, Country Versal. Yes.
Yeah, and so it's spelled country and versal, and so the record is based off of because man, if you listen to social, there's just so much backlash over people making country music or what's country music or anything. So this record is all country versal, right? So it's just I'm calling it country, and some records might not sound like it's country, and that's going to be the controversial part of it. But this record is meant to really get people to start thinking about take the music for what the music is, and not what box is supposed to fit in.
I thought it was a brilliant name for and I'll tell you why. Obviously, the play on words here is for the word controversial, right? Countryversial. Right. But if you really look at it, it can also be in replacement of universal.
Well, that was going to be the other point for it.
Yes, yeah. And I was
sure.
like, man, that's the perfect way to describe Big Joe Walker's music is universal.
Man, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I love that. So where can folks follow along with everything you have going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, please follow me on all socials. I don't know what's happening with TikTok, but we're on TikTok. We're on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook. Everything's at Big Joe Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find me there and find out all of our show dates. Love for you to come out and just please, tell people about the record, listen to the record, add it on your playlist, and come to shows. If you have a place where you think we need to play, please let me know. Like, we'll try our best to get out there and make it happen.
And if you're a big fan, the best way you can support, in my opinion, I'm sure Joe might agree, is number one, buy the record in person or on the website, which is bigjoewalker.com. That's the first way. Then after you've bought the record, this is what I do, the physical copy, I will present it or display it somewhere, and then I will stream the record whenever I want to listen to the songs. That way the artist is getting it twice. And then on top of that, you can loop. Like if you're on Spotify or YouTube, just open that playlist and just loop the record over and over again.
Just loop it all day.
That's right.
But no, thank you. Like, seriously, thank you for the support. And, like I said, it does go a long way for us. Buying merch goes a long way. But, really, if you can't do any of that, just please share it. Share the music to your friends, your families. That's probably, for me, that's one of the things that we make this music to get it to people. And so if we could just use your help to get it to people, be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, people don't realize how big a share is, man. Like,
it's huge.
I have a hashtag.
So
it's I dare you to share, and I put it on everything.
Yeah, that's so huge.
Yep, and it's free, right? Like it's even more,
Yeah.
it's way more important than even liking or engaging with content. Like,
100%. Yeah.
And you might think a lot of folks will tell me, well, I only have like 14 friends or 14 followers. And I'm like, yo, that's 14 people that are going to get to see that wouldn't see it otherwise. So
100%.
yeah. So Big Joe, man, thank you so much for being here, my brother.
No, man, thank you so much. And I'm so happy that we got to finally do this, man.
Yeah.
It's been
10
a
years
treat.
later, by God.
That gummit, 10 years, but it's been an absolute treat, brother.